But I did hear through the old from a little birdie that the Texans love Will Anderson to the point that if Bryce goes first, I don't think they're taking CJ.
Oh,
And if they
there
don't
you
trade, if they don't trade out, it could be Pete Prisco's worst nightmare. Will Anderson goes number 2.
I would pay just to be in the room with Pete if that happens.
And you know what? Let me ask you this, Rick, and just in terms of that little nugget that I heard, the Texans obviously they don't do things differently, but they're not following conventional wisdom as the media lays it out in the days and months leading up to the draft. And I say that because last year Derek Stingley went 3rd, and no one really saw that coming until I heard something a few days before, but no one thought Derek Stingley was going to go that high. But he did, and he's going to be a good player when he's healthy. Different strokes for different folks in terms of evaluating players. Were you surprised that Derek Stingley went that high? Are you surprised to hear that maybe they like Will Anderson too?
Not surprised at all, because you hear a bunch of things, and it's all what's coming with the, now let's look at Houston. They hired another defensive coordinator as their head coach. So that makes some sense. Although they do need a quarterback. I don't know how you're a new head coach, regardless offense, defense, or special, whatever your background is, but you have to have a trigger man to have success. So you're not going to be, or hopefully never going to be in this position again. And this is your only opportunity to take one of these two guys. So I think you have to take him. The other point that I want to make is on Bryce Young. Okay, let's look at him. So everybody's concerned about the size, but look at the divisions that he can go in, the NFC South or the AFC South. Okay, those are pretty much either indoor or warm weather climate conditions that he's going to be playing in. So the size should not be a factor. Now, let's say you were in the NFC East, up in or places where you're going to have to play in cold weather.
Green Bay, Buffalo, any of those places.
Yeah. So maybe that becomes a little bit more of a concern just based on size alone. But if you're going to play in the AFC South or the NFC South, then that's an ideal fit for Bryce Young, not only as a player, but also if you're concerned about the size, because the wind's not going to have a factor. I mean, you're pretty much playing in ideal conditions year round.
And also, just before someone says it, what if they say to you, Rick, well, you say size, but the ball's going to get batted down all the time because he's 5'10"?
He hasn't had it batted down in college, so I don't know why he's going to not be able to do everything he's done at college at the NFL level. And we talked about that a little bit yesterday. If a guy is a non-producer in college, what makes you think he's going to be a producer in the NFL?
Yeah, that's right.
But I'll give you an example. That's why we were able to get a Danielle Hunter in the 3rd round, because I think he only had 1.5 sacks before he came out, but then he went on to be Danielle. So there are some exceptions to the rules but for the most part, if you're productive in college and you're a very good football player, that should carry over into the NFL.
Any conversation, if you're Nick Caserio, are you calling Scott Fitter to try to trade up? If you love Bryson, you may be off the other quarterbacks at 2.
Yeah, maybe, but if that's your only option, and if I'm Carolina and they're going to give me something that I feel is, I won't say ridiculous, but a really good offer, and I can get, and I know I'm going to 2, and I love CJ as much as I love Bryce,
right?
Then why not take the extra, maybe 1st round pick in future years?
And you're not trading down no matter what. Right.
Absolutely not.
Okay. So if you look at my mock draft here, as Debo has it on CBSSports.com on the YouTube channel here, CJ Stroud, I have him going number 2 because I had Bryce going number 1. But here's the wrinkle in the plans here. The Titans trade up from 11 to 2. And let me tell you the compensation, Rick, and you can scoff at it or you can high-five me if you want. So Houston gets number 11. Houston gets also a first, also gets in 2024, gets a 1st and a 3rd round pick. And in 2025, they get a 1st and a 4th round pick. So all told, they get number 11. They get a 24 and 25 1st round pick, a 24 3rd round pick, a 25 4th round pick. And then Tennessee gets the pleasure of moving up to number 2 for a quarterback.
Well, we have this draft chart that I gave you.
Yeah.
It's a little bit updated from the Jimmy Johnson draft chart. So you would have to really go and kind of add up all those numbers which I can't do off the top of my head. I'm not smart enough to add all those
That's okay.
values up at each of those. But
I'll do them. I'll do them.
but you got to remember, a first round pick, future first round pick, does not have the same value as a first round pick this year.
And where do you look on the chart to find that number? Do you go middle of the first round for
Probably low, because you don't know.
Oh, okay.
Technically, you would be looking, if it's Houston. I don't know if they're going to win a Super Bowl next year or not, but
I'm going to say no.
it's usually a round later in value.
Right. Okay. I've heard that.
So whatever that is, top of the second, which is almost half the value of way less the value of almost 3 times the value of going from 2 to 11.
And what about, I mentioned 2025 first round pick, so 2 years out. Where do you put that on the chart?
That's hard. Just you can't predict that one, because you don't know where those teams are going to be or where they're going to be predicting. But usually the rule of thumb is 1 round less.
Okay, so I did some quick math here. According to the Rick Spielman trade value chart that he came up with in his spare time driving back and forth.
I did come up with. I want to give credit to some other people that I got this chart from. I wish I could sit here and say I was that smart, but it was a pretty accurate assessment of what the value of the slots were in rounds.
So pick 11 on the Debo chart. You can say Debo's number.
The Debo chart
is 1,445 points for pick 11. And I did some quick back of the envelope calculations here for the picks that I selected here. It ends up being around 1,900 points, but you're trying to predict the value of those future picks. That's sort of hard to do. So 1,900 versus 1,445. Are you going to do that?
If I got all those first round picks down?
Yeah.
But again, I'm in Houston's situation. That's very enticing, but you're going to have talks. Is it worth it when we're going to have quarterback struggles next year? And are you betting on, are you going to be able to get your future quarterback? Like I said, if it wasn't a quarterback, then it's something different, but you got to really take an opportunity if you're picking that high in the draft, to take a player.
Yeah, and why Big Jordan in the comments actually just says exactly what you did. Basically, Texans just give their division rival in Tennessee a quarterback and move out of range for the best defensive players and another year of Davis Mills. So those are all considerations. And that's a fair point. The other thing, the trade values that I gave you in this deal were the exact trade values that the 49ers gave the Bears when they moved up a few years ago for Trey Lance.
How far did they move up?
12-3. So this is 11-2.
So pretty similar.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. I think we're staying put for the Texans, and we're taking a quarterback. Or, in Pete Prisco's worst nightmare, Will Anderson.